Profit, and I'm Nupur Talwar Suri. The 53rd GST Council meeting has just concluded, and several crucial issues like streamlining the GST framework, enhancing compliance and resolving industry concerns are likely to have been discussed. As per reports, one of the primary topics, of course, was rate rationalization, potentially involving reductions in GST rates for specific goods and services. Now, this move is anticipated to boost consumption and provide relief to businesses. Let's in fact go across to Janani, who has been speaking to finance ministers of different states. To remember that there was a meeting in the morning session with the state finance ministers of Nirmala Sitharaman to discuss their pre-budget demands. Janani, hi. Janani, tell us what you're hearing from the various finance ministers.
Hi, Nipur. So as we've just gotten to know that the 53rd GST Council meeting has come to an end, and we spoke to we spoke to Andhra Pradesh's Finance Minister T. Keshav, who indicated that the next GST Council meeting, in fact, is expected to take place post the budget. Interestingly, the exemption on fertilizer GST, which was much awaited by the industry, has now been referred to the GOM on rate rationalization. Remember, this is the GOM that was recently reconstituted. And on that note, we will have to wait and see if, in fact, how the committee decides. But other than that, also a lot of decisions regarding ease of doing businesses was also taken up, is what we're getting to hear at the moment. Back to you.
All right. What we also understand is that the Kerala finance minister has urged for a special package of 24,000 crore rupees over next 2 years to tide over liquidity stress. That, of course, is what we are hearing from Kerala. But apart from that, there is also a demand, Janani, that has been made by Andhra Pradesh for a package for setting up Amravati as the capital. Tell us more. All right, I don't think we've got Janani. We're going to try and get her back in just a bit. But this is what we are hearing from Kerala. That's on your screens right now. So the Kerala Finance Minister asking for a package of about 24,000 crore rupees over 2 years to tide over liquidity. Now, they've also urged a special capital investment of 5,000 crore rupees for the state of Vidigam port development, requesting another 5,000 crore for financial infrastructure projects such as the Calicut-Wayanad Tunnel Road. Also, of course, asking for earlier clearance of a semi-high-speed railway line. Now, just do remember that these are all just wish lists that are coming in from various states at this point in time. Earlier on, Janani, our correspondent who's on the ground, also spoke to the Andhra Pradesh Finance Minister, and he seemed to suggest that one of the things that they would like is essentially a special package for making sure that Amravati has all the help it needs to become the capital of Andhra Pradesh. Now, ahead of the GST Council meeting, of course, here's a look also at what India Inc. is expecting. Just to tell our viewers, we're also in standby for the Finance Minister to be speaking and briefing the media very shortly. We'll cut across to that when she starts addressing the media. Even as we await the Finance Minister to give us a sense of what has been discussed and what's the way forward, just to take our viewers through, the main issues that were before the GST Council. Rate rationalization, of course, is one thing that's been talked about. So that is something that we will have to wait and watch how that happens. Now, the broad assessment, of course, amongst industry players has been that the 12 and 18% slabs need to be merged, perhaps to say a new rate slab of, that would hover around about 15 to 16%. But that obviously is going to depend on the government's political call also, because several items perhaps will see an upward movement from the rates that are there at this point in time. So that is a political decision that will be taken. So other aspects, of course, are the inverted duty structure that could be looked upon. Review of online gaming, you've just heard all those experts talk about that. GST reduction on chemicals and fertilizers, again, We'll have to see how that happens, because that's again part of rate rationalization. Bringing fuel under GST. Now, this is something that's been talked about for quite a bit now, but obviously it's a state-sensitive subject as well, because several states feel that if it is brought under the ambit of GST, they will be losing some of those revenues, but the benefit will ideally pass on to the consumer. So that is something that will perhaps be deliberated. We don't know yet whether that has happened or not. But just to also tell our viewers, what you see on the screens right now is the Finance Minister, of course, flanked by senior members of the Finance Ministry. We are just going to cut in for that press conference in just a bit. Let's in fact go across now as the Finance Minister gets ready to speak.
The 53rd meeting of the GST Council held in New Delhi. The state finance ministers and union territories had joined in there. I also have on the dais with us here the Union Minister for State for Finance, Shri Pankaj Chaudhary ji, Revenue Secretary, Shri Sanjay Malhotra ji, Chairperson CBIC, Shri Sanjay Kumar Agarwal ji, and members of the GST Council, Shri Shashank Priya and Shri Vivek Ranjan. I would request Honorable Finance Minister to brief us on the outcomes, and we would take questions thereafter. Madam, please.
Namaskar, good evening. Today, we had invited the state finance ministers with two things in our mind. As you know, the pre-budget consultations are going on, and it is a normal practice that we call the state finance ministers also to participate in the pre-budget consultation. So the first half of this day, in the morning session, pre-lunch, we had the pre-budget consultation with finance ministers. Post-lunch, we held the GST Council meeting. As you know, the last meeting was held sometime in October last year, and because of elections and states being busy with the campaign, just as we were busy as well, we thought it was better utilized if the time was used for both the budget consultation and also for GST Council. And in this GST Council, therefore, I must upfront tell you that while there were a lot of issues on which the Fitment Committee and the Legal Committee had worked and readied quite a few agenda, considering that we were meeting only for half a day, some agenda were taken up, considerable number for today. But even as we concluded today, we acknowledged the fact that we have ready agenda points which we could not take up today for want of time, which we'll take up in the next meeting. And therefore, it was also decided, keeping in mind one or two matters of urgency which the states also had in their mind, to hold a GST meeting at the earliest after today, which will be sometime post the budget session, maybe sometime middle of August. Before the end of August is when the next meeting will happen, where the agenda which we couldn't complete today it wasn't tabled also, but just to let you know that there was enough agenda. Some of them got to be discussed today, and the rest which could not be put on the agenda list itself will be carried on for the next meeting. But today, the 53rd GST Council meeting has actually taken a lot of decisions on trade facilitation, easing compliance burden, and giving relief to taxpayers in terms of compliance easing out. So this will benefit the traders, MSMEs and taxpayers, is my strong view. I will just flag those issues and not get into the details. Later on, you can always ask us the question and we'll go about. First one is that there was a decision taken today and the GST Council recommended waiving interest and penalties for demand notices that have been issued under Section 73 of the GST Act. What are the items which are under Section 73? Cases not involving fraud, suppression, or misstatements. So, for all those notices which were issued under Section 73, for the fiscal years 2017-18, 18-19, and 19-20, the Council has recommended waiving interest and penalties on the demand notices which have been served. And this will be applicable in cases where the taxpayer pays the full amount of tax demanded in the notice by 31/3/2025. So notices were issued for those 3 financial years under Section 73 of the CGST Act. So if the taxpayer comes forward to pay the total amount before 31st March 2025, he shall not have to pay the interest or the penalties which have been normally put on them. So that relief has been given. Again, the Council has recommended, I'm going to the next item. Council has recommended that the time limit to avail input tax credit in respect of any invoice or debit note under Section 16(4) of the CGST Act through any GSTR 3B return filed up to 30/11/2021 for the financial years 17-18, 18-19, 19-20 and 2021 may be deemed to be 30/11/2021. So for the same requisite amendment, retrospectively with effect from 1st July 2017, the Council has made a recommendation. Moving to the next item. In order to reduce government litigation, the Council has recommended a monetary limit of 20 lakh for GST Appellate Tribunal, 1 crore for High Court, and 2 crore for Supreme Court for filing of appeals. Filing of appeals by the department before these legal fora. Specific amounts, I repeat, the Council's recommended amounts, recommended monetary limits are 20 lakh for GST Appellate Tribunal, 1 crore for High Court, and 2 crore for Supreme Court for filing of appeals by the department. So I go to the next one. Council has also recommended that the maximum amount for pre-deposit, maximum amount of pre-deposit for filing appeal before the appellate authority shall be reduced from 25 crores CGST and 25 crores SGST to 20 crores CGST. CGST is 25 crore, comes to 20. SGST is 25 crore, comes to 20 crore. And that is the maximum amount of pre-deposit for filing appeals before the appellate authority. Also, the pre-deposit for filing of appeal before the appellate tribunal will be reduced from 20% with a maximum amount of 50 crore CGST and 50 crores SGST to 10% with a maximum amount of 20 crore CGST and rupees 20 crore SGST. So that is a recommendation. There are 1 or 2 which I am not stating it here for want of time, but the complete decisions will be sent to you by mail. Council has also decided and recommended that amending the provisions of CGST Act to provide that the 3-month period for filing appeals in the GST Appellate Tribunal will start from a day which shall be notified by the government. So, the President of the Tribunal has assumed office, and the said period for filing appeal by the taxpayers will expire on 5th August 2024. But there is a need that we need to give an extension, so we've come up with this decision. The next one I'm moving over to is, in order to help small taxpayers, the Council recommended extending the time limit to furnish the detail and the returns in the form GSTR 4 from 30th April at present. At the moment it is 30th April. The Council has recommended that it be extended to 30th June. And this is for GSTR 4, those returns which have to be filed. This will apply for returns for the financial year 2024-25 onwards. The next one I'm moving on to, the Council has recommended requisite amendment in the CGST rules to provide that interest would not be charged on an amount which is available in the electronic cash ledger on the due date of filing the GSTR 3B return and is debited while filing the said return. This will ease interest burden on the taxpayer. I'm moving to the next decision, which is again taxpayer friendly. The Council has recommended again insertion of a functionality by way of Form GSTR 1A, which would allow a taxpayer to add any particulars of current tax period which he may have missed out on in reporting in the GSTR 1. So if he missed out on reporting in GSTR 1, there shall now be a form called GSTR 1A in which he'll be able to do that for the current tax period or to amend any particulars which are already declared in GSTR 1 for the current tax period before filing GSTR 3B return for the current tax period. So one gets filed if there's a missed out fact or you've done some error, you can correct it in the GSTR 1A. You can't, of course, go back for the current tax period is what is being said. Then there is going to be a rolling out of biometric based Aadhaar authentication in an all India basis. You know that we ran a pilot in Gujarat, also a pilot in Puducherry. There have been very good inputs coming out of it. So this will help us to combat fraudulent input tax credit claims made through fake invoices. In the cases where the applicant had opted for Aadhaar authentication and where the case has been identified on the basis of data analytics and risk parameters on the system, these have been tried in the GST Suvidha Kendras, and this will be taken up on an all India basis. So the GST Council has today recommended to roll out the biometric based Aadhaar authentication of registration of applicants on an all India basis in a phased manner. So if these are matters which came through the legal committee, there were a couple of clarifications issued by the fitment committee. They've issued quite a few, but I'm highlighting one or two. Council recommended to prescribe a uniform rate of 12% on all milk cans, meaning steel, iron, aluminium, which are irrespective of the use, They are called milk cans, but wherever they are used, that will be the rate applicable, so that no disputes arise out of it. They have a standard shape, so that will determine what is a milk can and what is not. Then Council also recommended to prescribe a uniform GST rate of 12% on all carton boxes and cases of both corrugated and non-corrugated paper or paper board. This will in particular help the apple growers of Himachal Pradesh, the apple growers of J&K, whose request it has been for quite some time. The Fitment Committee has also recommended it now. There are details about HSN codes on this matter, but simple step is corrugated, non-corrugated, carton boxes made of paper or corrugated paper, non-corrugated paper or paper board will all benefit from this. Council also has clarified and recommended that the clarification be put out on that all types of sprinklers, including fire water sprinklers, will attract 12% GST, and to regularize the past practice on an as is whereas basis. Coming to the next point of solar cookers, Council recommended to prescribe 12% on all solar cookers, whether it has single or dual energy source. On services, there are just 2 points which I'll highlight to you. Services provided by Indian Railways to the common man, sale of platform tickets, facility of retiring rooms, waiting rooms, cloakroom services, battery operated car services are being exempted from GST. Further, intra-railway supplies are also being exempted. The other, which is very important, service by way of hostel accommodation is presently not exempt, which are being provided for students if they are outside of educational institutions. Am I right? If they are within an educational institution, they are already exempt. Please let there be clarity. Hostels which are for students which are within a which are within an educational institutions are already exempt. Now, hostels which are for students but outside of an educational institutions are also getting exempt. But listen to this, please. The measure of relief for students and working professionals, Council has recommended to exempt accommodation services having a value of supply up to 20,000 per person per month. So it can be hostels run by Samaj, so that poor people belonging to their Samaj come there, stay there for 20,000 rupees per person per month. They will not be worried about GST at all. The condition, of course, is those provided these services are supplied for a minimum continuous period of 90 days. So it's not like, I don't want to take the name of branded names. It's not as if tourists who come and stay for 3-4 days and go away, no GST. No. It is meant for students, and therefore if they come and 90 continuous days if they stay, yes, they are exempt. Up to 20,000 rupees per person per month. So hostels run for people who come from rural areas and stay in some hostel which is run by either communities or social welfare organizations, not of the government, even private. They are not going to be touched by GST, provided it is 20,000 per person per month and provided that is continuously occupied by that person for 90 days at least. I've just highlighted a few points, both from the legal and fitment committees. More can be answered even as you ask questions. There were quite a few new ministers. Was there a list of the committees? Some committees have had newer ministers taking charge in the place of ministers who were earlier there. As we go along, I'll mention it. Of immediate interest will be the Rate Rationalization Committee, for which the Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar, Samrat Chaudhary, has been given charge.
Ma'am, should we open the floor for questions now? Yes, please. I'll request all of you to begin, and as and when you ask your question, please specify your name and organization. I begin in the center, 124. Ma'am, 124, the first question.
Ma'am, good evening. Shishir from Hindu Business Line. My question is about this online gaming, casinos and horse racing, because in the last meeting there was a recommendation that it will be reviewed after 6 months, the progress. So has there any decision taken, because so many notices have been issued to companies? So is there any thing?
It didn't come for discussion, nor was it taken today. It wasn't on the agenda also. It wasn't on the agenda, it didn't come for discussion, no, it wasn't taken up.
To the left, 265.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening. Ma'am, this is regarding in terms of the appellate tribunal, you had mentioned that 5th of August would be the date of filing, the extended date of filing. Just to clarify the operationality of the appellate tribunals, we understand that the principal bench has a head appointed, but in terms of the operationality of the other benches, could we get some clarity, like the date?
Revenue Secretary is going to sit with the one of the judges of the Supreme Court and the committee, which otherwise is the competent authority to choose members who will be in various benches. That meeting is yet to take place. It will happen soon, and the moment that is done, people will be appointed, and then it can all activate.
266 next to the left, ma'am.
राजीव हूँ दैनिक जागरण से। मेरा सवाल है कि जो आधार ऑथेंटिकेशन के लिए जो आपने नियम लाया है, तो ये जो पायलट प्रोजेक्ट होगा गुजरात और पुडुचेरी में, ये तो फर्स्ट की ये कब से लागू होगा? दूसरी बात, अभी जो GSTN पे जाकर रजिस्ट्रेशन कराना होता है तो वो ऑनलाइन भी हो जाता है, अगर तो अब क्या फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन उनको कराना होगा?
नहीं, ऑनलाइन में जो वेरिफिकेशन हो रही है ठीक हो रही है, होने दो, उसका कोई बदलाव नहीं कर रहे हैं हम, वो चालू रहेगा। मगर ये सुविधा स्टेशन जो सर्विस सेंटर बनता है, उसमें जाकर के इकट्ठा सभी जो रिक्वायरमेंट है, आधार है, आपके बायोमेट्रिक वेरिफिकेशन है, आपके पेपर्स है, सब इकट्ठा देने में गुजरात में पायलट प्रोजेक्ट का एक्सपीरियंस बेस करते हुए मैं बोल रही हूँ, इन अ मैटर ऑफ 15-20 मिनट्स ऑल पेपर वर्क इज डन एंड रजिस्ट्रेशन हो जाता है नया कंपनियों का। ऑनलाइन में करने के बाद बोर्ड्स में भी बाद में जब वेरिफिकेशन सही नहीं हुआ या कुछ गड़बड़ है, बायोमेट्रिक ठीक से नहीं हुआ, फिर यो फिजिकली वेरीफाई करने के लिए आप जा रही हो। मगर इस सुविधा पोर्टल के सुविधा सेंटर के द्वारा जो होता है, सब एक ही जगह इकट्ठा 15-20 मिनट्स के अंदर हो जाता है, फिर उसमें फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन का आवश्यकता नहीं होता। सो एवरीथिंग हैपन्स इमीडिएटली, ज़्यादा टाइम ना खर्च करते हुए, अनलेस बियॉन्ड दैट वेरिफिकेशन कुछ और डेटा मिसमैच होता है तो दोबारा उनसे ताल्लुक रखना पड़ता। सो इट एक्चुअली इनफैक्ट इन द मीटिंग टुडे, आंध्र प्रदेश का मिनिस्टर जो नया आया है, उनका ये कहना था कि 2-3 लेवल पर स्टडी करने के बाद उनका एक्सपीरियंस ये दिखाता है कि ऐसे फिजिकली आकर वेरीफाई करके करने वाले के कारण फेक रजिस्ट्रेशन कम हो रही है। गुजरात का भी एक्सपीरियंस वही प्रूव करता है कि वंस दिस काइंड ऑफ अ वेरिफिकेशन विद बायोमेट्रिक ऑथेंटिकेशन हैपन्स, फेक कंपनीज का रजिस्ट्रेशन बिल्कुल नहीं होता। इसीलिए ये मेथड अभी पायलट टेस्ट के द्वारा और आंध्रा के स्टडी के द्वारा हमें ये जानकारी मिल रही है कि दिस विल बी फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन ऑफ फेकरी का हम कम कर सकते हैं।
नहीं, एक सवाल
272
जो कैंपस आउटसाइड कैंपस को जो एग्जाम्पशन मिलेगा जीएसटी से, उससे स्टूडेंट्स को क्या फायदा होगा? कुछ
बिल्कुल स्टूडेंट्स का फायदा होगा, क्योंकि कम्युनिटीज बहुत सारे स्टेट्स में उनके रूरल बच्चे के लिए सुविधाजनक सस्ते में हॉस्टल्स दे रहे हैं। हर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन में रेजिडेंशियल फैसिलिटी नहीं रहता, इसीलिए रूरल एरिया से जो बच्चे सिटीज में आकर पढ़ने के लिए आते हैं उनके लिए सस्ते में जब अकोमोडेशन मिलता है और उसके ऊपर जीएसटी जब नहीं है, उनको फेवरेबली देखना चाहिए। बच्चों का सुविधा ही है वो।
Good evening.
Rollout of the Aadhaar-based authentication as he asked.
What?
When will be the rollout of this Aadhaar?
I already said that it will happen in a phased manner all over the country.
From when?
From now.
Okay, from.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Ruchi Bhatia from Bloomberg News. I have two quick questions. One on the rate rationalization GOM. By when will the new GOM with the new members be able to submit their report? And the second question on, you also met the state finance ministers for pre-budget consultations. Can you throw some light on some of the key recommendations if you can?
See, the rate rationalization group of ministers, since the time it was constituted, has been working. It's not as if it never worked. So quite a lot of substantial work has happened. Now, because you have a new deputy chief minister taking charge of it, I would want to give him that time for him to understand through his team as to how far they have gone. What was decided in the council today was, अगले बार जब we meet, ग्रुप ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स, वो नया डेप्यूटी चीफ मिनिस्टर जो चेयर है अभी, वो काउंसिल को ये रिपोर्ट पेश करें कि स्टेटस क्या है अभी, कितना क्या काम हुआ है, रेशनलाइजेशन के काम में कितने आगे बढ़ चुके हैं और काम क्या बचा हुआ है। ऐसे करके आज का स्टेटस विस्तार से अगले मीटिंग में देने के लिए डिसीजन लिया गया। उस मीटिंग में ये भी करेंगे, हम रेशनलाइजेशन के ऊपर चर्चा शुरू करेंगे। ये नहीं है कि उसी मीटिंग में रेशनलाइजेशन का सभी डिसीजन हो जाएगा, नहीं, क्योंकि पहले बार जीओएम के द्वारा एक प्रेजेंटेशन होगा, चाहे वो रिपोर्ट ड्राफ्ट है, फर्स्ट ड्राफ्ट है या फाइनल ड्राफ्ट है, वो मुझे मालूम नहीं, वो ग्रुप ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स को मालूम, वो पेश करेंगे, उसके ऊपर चर्चा होगा। सो वील स्टार्ट द डिस्कशन ऑन रेट रेशनलाइजेशन and that committee will give us a status of where the rationalization work has progressed, how far it has progressed, what has been achieved in it till now, how much more they will have to do. So essentially in the next meeting we start that discussion.
One.
Huh?
Which is going to be sometime in August.
Yes.
And on the second question on the state finance ministers meeting.
It was a good discussion. A lot of every minister has given their speech in written also. Northeast ministers were of the view that DONAIR, Department of Northeast Affairs, will have to work together with them so that they get more resources for their use. State-specific suggestions were there for more infrastructure. This was promised earlier. Would you want to continue to do it, or will you do it now? You know, things like that. And also from the point of view of devolution, the discussion which has to happen in the Finance Commission, while all ministers agree it has to happen in the Finance Commission, they mentioned that also, that it has to be taken up with the Finance Commission. Broadly,
127 next.
Just want to let you know that there are 11 new ministers in the GST Council. 11. So Andhra Pradesh has a new minister, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Mizoram, Odisha, Rajasthan, Sikkim, Telangana and Tripura. 11 states have new ministers.
127 to the left.
मैम तरुण शर्मा फ्रॉम जी बिजनेस। मैम आपने ये तो क्लैरिफाई कर दिया कि ऑनलाइन गेमिंग पे कोई आज डिस्कशन नहीं हुआ, लेकिन मैम कंफ्यूजन जो है वो सेक्शन 11A को CGST एक्ट जो इंसर्शन है जिसमें आपने कहा कि हमारे पास पावर होनी चाहिए, हमने जो पेनल्टीज लगाई हैं उनको लेविड करने की और हटाने की, तो मैम इस पे आप क्लैरिफाई कर पाएंगे?
नहीं, आज मुझे ऑनलाइन गेम के ऊपर कोई कुछ कहना नहीं है।
अच्छा मैम, इस पे ये सेक्शन 11A को CGST एक्ट में इंसर्शन का क्या मीनिंग होगा?
You can go on asking me any number of questions on it. Since in the council today we didn't discuss anything, I am not empowered to say anything on it.
Okay, ma'am. Second
next question 56.
मैम आलोक प्रियदर्शी फ्रॉम CNBC आवाज। मैम इंडस्ट्री की एक मांग थी फर्टिलाइजर पर GST एग्जाम करने को लेकर, फिटमेंट कमेटी से शायद प्रपोजल गया था, तो क्या रीजन रहा फर्टिलाइजर पर जो GST एग्जाम करने की मांग थी नहीं होने की? क्या इसको आपने ये इसके ऊपर क्या डिसीजन हुआ है?
Do you want to talk?
इसके ऊपर में जो निर्णय काउंसिल ने किया है वो उससे, क्योंकि ये एक बड़ा मुद्दा है तो इसके ऊपर में जो GOM रिकॉन्स्टिट्यूट किया है उसको काउंसिल ने रेफर किया है। और जो आपने 11A का जैसे FM ने कहा, ये पहले से जो हम कई सारे केसेस में एज वेरियस बेसिस पे हम ऑलरेडी रेगुलराइज कर रहे थे, इसका संबंध उससे है, इसका ऑनलाइन गेमिंग से कोई ताल्लुक डायरेक्टली नहीं। तो एज वेरियस बेसिस पे जो हम एग्जेम्प्ट करते हैं उससे है।
अगला सवाल 124 सेंटर में। मैम
मैं पीयूष पांडे हूँ TV9 भारतवर्ष से। आपने जो लिटिगेशन के लिए सीमा तय की है बेसिकली ट्राइब्यूनल, हाई कोर्ट और सुप्रीम कोर्ट के लिए, इससे इतर जो नीचे के मसले होंगे वो किस तरह से निपटाए जाएंगे? क्या मीडिएशन से या कोई और तरीका होगा?
इससे इतर आपका क्या प्रश्न? आपका कुछ
20 लाख से नीचे होगा।
20 लाख से नीचे यदि होगा तो हम उसमें अपील में नहीं जाएंगे। तो वो कमिश्नर अपील के लेवल पे जो भी निर्णय हो जाएगा उसको सरकार मान लेगी, जब तक कि वो कोई पॉलिसी रिलेटेड मेजर नहीं हो तो उसमें हम अपील नहीं करेंगे आगे। टैक्स पेयर तो अपील कर सकता है, यदि वो संतुष्ट नहीं है तो वो अपील कर सकता है। उसी प्रकार से हाई कोर्ट के लेवल पे, अगर ट्राइब्यूनल के लेवल पे कोई निर्णय हो जाता है जो कि 1 करोड़ से कम राशि का है तो गवर्नमेंट उसमें अपील में नहीं जाएगी, टैक्स पेयर उसमें अपील में जा सकता है।
ये क्या हमारे लिए सरकार को?
Number 16 to the left.
Ma'am, Meghna Mittal from Money Control. The Petroleum Minister recently said that they will work towards bringing fuel under GST. What is your view? Is it an uphill task? Could there be a discussion in the coming meetings?
See, today we didn't discuss about it, but I'm still answering your question only to say that petrol and diesel, even when GST was implemented, I distinctly remember Senior Minister then, Shri Arun Jaitley, talking about it, that the proviso exists already in the Act, meaning GST, petrol and diesel can be handled, for which the law has been already embedded. So what is pending is, once the states agree, in the council they have to decide what will be the rate of taxation. Once that decision is taken, it will be put into the Act. So the indication or the intent of this central government, even as the GST was implemented, was eventually sometime petrol and diesel can be brought into the GST. Then we didn't have to go and amend the law and everything else. The provision has already been made that it can be brought into GST. The one and only decision which is therefore expected is for the states to agree and come into the GST Council and then decide what rate they will agree on. So at the moment, The intention of the GST as it was brought in by Shri Arun Jaitley is to have the petrol and diesel in GST. It is up to the states now to say, all right, we'll all come together and get into GST, therefore come into the council and then decide on what will be the rate. So the intent of the central government and the intent of my late predecessor was clear. We want the GST to include petrol and diesel, but it's up to the states.
Number 45 to the left.
Any discussion has happened which is with regard to rationalization of GST rate on co-premium, insurance co-premium?
No. 271 and then 10.
Hi ma'am, good evening. I'm Kriti from Informist Media.
But the point that I want to put before you is, you asked for insurance related, right? The fitment committee has received formal requests only now. So obviously it cannot be taken up in this meeting itself. They'll have to work on it and maybe comes in the next. Maybe. That's not yet they'll have to work on it.
Yeah. Hi ma'am, Kriti from Informist Media here. So exemption on railway services. Since railways are vast, the services are vast, would you be able to help us understand what kind of revenue foregoing would happen post this? Would it be minuscule, significant, and if there is an estimate figure on it?
Do you want to say?
We don't have the numbers, but I may tell you that these services are already exempt. It was only, about a year ago that we brought them on their request under the GST regime. Now we have gone back, so the revenue foregone will not be much.
264 at the back left.
That is related to the GST rationalization only. So the discussion on the rate rationalization has been going on since 2021. So could you please share what specific items are being discussed for this? This is Haris from News 18. Sorry.
What specific
items are being discussed for rate rationalization
as I said, the committee, which is a group of ministers, will do a presentation to the council in the next meeting. Then we'll know what issues are being taken up by them, how far they've progressed, and what will be left for them to do.
We'll take the last question here, number 10.
Ma'am, I am Monica from the New Indian Express. Ma'am, a lot of companies, they have filed writ petition against the council's decision related to GST on corporate guarantee. Was that taken up in today's meeting?
Yeah, so corporate guarantee here, it is being clarified that in case it is for services or goods where whole ITC is available, the corporate guarantee will not attract a GST. So that is a major relief, because most of the goods, services are taxable and they are not exempt. So all of them will get this relief.
Okay. And also regarding this anti-profiteering, so introduction of sunset was expected in today's meeting in the anti-profiteering provisions. Was that also discussed?
Yes, that was taken up today.
Yes, and it was decided that this will be sunset. So the last date that has been fixed for this is 1st April 25. However, the cases which have already been registered, they will continue to be heard, and they will be decided. The other decision taken in this regard is to shift from CCI, the Competition Commission of India, the hearing of these cases, to the to the GST 80 as and when it becomes functional.
Also, sir, ma'am, I would like to know about this pre-deposit new limits. So now, if someone has already paid the extra, if someone has already paid this pre-deposit according to the previous law, now will they be eligible for the extra amount they have paid for the refund?
This is prospective.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Just one information which I want to use this opportunity, because I'm before the media, and through the media I want to reassure the assessees that our intent is to make the GST assessees' life easier, We are working towards less and less compliance. I want to underline the fact on behalf of the CGST that notices are not being sent here, left, right, and center, because most often we are asked, why so many notices? Don't you know what's happening, and so on. I want to use this occasion to let you know that only 1.96% of all active tax assessees have been sent any notice from the central GST. So if there are 1,14,939 active assessees, it is only to less than 2%, 1.96% assessees, 1,14,939 assessees. Less than 2% of them have been sent notices from the central GST. I want to be clear on this. Our intention is to make it easier, simpler, less cumbersome. And sooner that we talk of more and more ease of doing business, we'll follow that. And that is proven by this data, that as of 31st December 23, only 1.96% of these assessees have been sent a notice or a notice. So not beyond that. So 1.96% of the 1,14,900 number of active taxpayers here, 58,62,886. So this 1.96 is in actual number 1,14,939. All right? Clear? 1.96 is in actual number 1,14,939. So only that many have received notice. So CGST is harassing. None of that. In a large country like this, CGST has sent only this many notices. I want to underline the fact here. Of course, states would do their own. Each state can do their own. I'm not coming on to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
All right, so that was the finance minister over there reading out what's happened at that meeting. Not a lot of decisions really taken today, but do remember that this is the first meeting of the GST Council after the new government has been sworn in. So there are obviously changes that have happened. Let's in fact examine what's happened in this meeting. Right now is Mr. Saurabh Agarwal from ENY and Mr. Rajat Bose joining us from Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas. Ved Jain also joining us from VGA Legal. Ved Jain, your thoughts on what's happened today? A lot of it, of course, essentially, she talked a lot about reducing that burden for the government in terms of litigation, but perhaps keeping people who are being assessed also in mind. So give us an overview of what your first thoughts were.
See, today meeting, as I see, was the 53rd and the first meeting after this general elections. And I believe the budget is in the offing, and the next one the budget is coming. And the finance minister, what today have done there is they have given a lot of relief to the taxpayer. The entire focus of today's meeting, as it comes out, is only to give some relief to the taxpayer. Or if you see what has been done, there are three important takeaways from the today's meeting. One important is that all that demand which has been created for 3 years, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, in case the payment is made by the due date which they have put it 31st March 25, then the interest and penalty has been waived off. That's a very big relief. I believe that's a relief which has been given for the there. Then the period with which the GST 4 period has been extended. And talking about the litigation, I believe a lot of relief has been given. And I may just bring here to a point that similar tax effect circular is applicable in case of direct taxes under the Income Tax Act. And it is a time tested there in income tax. no appeal can be filed against commission appeal order in case the tax effect is less than 50 lakh rupees. And if it is less than 1 crore rupee, then no appeal before High Court. And if it is less than 5 crore, no appeal before the Supreme Court. And then policy matter is also well defined in that circular. So that is where any legal provision has been challenged and which has been struck down. So that's where the appeal can be filed, because then it can have impact on cases beyond that amount also. So that's why always a caveat is created that yes, in case there is a litigation involving a legal point where the provision has been struck down or a constitutional validity has been challenged, then those provisions will be still subject to appeal because it can affect other cases also. So I believe today, if you look at the overall perspective, the way this meeting, the finance minister has explained the decision which have been taken, they are all to give relief to the taxpayer. And frankly speaking, what was the expectation today and what was in the media before that, what can be the agenda? Nothing on this gaming, horse trading, etc. Restructuring, she said, no, the new minister has taken over as chairman and then he will look into that. We will come back again. Some relief has been given on guarantee commission that in case you are eligible for input credit and you are fully taxable, then of course there will be no GST on the guarantee commission, etc. And some part somewhere, and this is relief on this student hostel, 20,000 rupees up to, I believe this will be a big relief because this is a concession given keeping the mind of people's students coming from the rural area, and because the colleges and schools do not have the hostel facility. So there are private institutions or private bodies which have built up hostels and provide this, and she has put a caveat of 20,000 rupees per person per month, and at least for 90 days so that people do not use this facility, misuse this facility in the case of a guest house, etc. So I believe overall, the objective is to extend relief to the taxpayer. Secondly, in order to avoid litigation. And thirdly, all policy matter regarding rate structure, etc., except few changes where she has reduced the rate of 12%, etc. in some cases. There is no other agenda which I believe today has been taken. So I believe post-election, this is one of the good meetings which has happened. And I'm reasonably sure in the coming meeting also, I think she said, yes, the meeting will take place and a restructuring agenda will be there, but not final. It will be some discussion. But I think there may be, some disappointment with people like in the gaming and etc., which where they were expecting a big relief in this meeting, etc.
Right, absolutely. As you're pointing out, of course, that wasn't touched upon. But so what I wanted to understand at this point in time is from Mr. Jain. Mr. Jain, it did appear that the FM seemed to be stressing on the ease of doing business. Do you think that this is a precursor for what we could see in the budget? Is that something that they could bring about? Given the stress that was laid on it in today's GST meeting, ease of compliance, ease of doing business, do you think this gives us an indication of what could be expected in the union budget?
Yes, definitely, yes. I believe that today's meeting resolution which would have been passed will be enabling provisions so that the finance minister can propose necessary amendment in the coming budget. So she would have definitely got that approval from the GST council so that she can move the amendment in the parliament in the budget session on that part. And on that aspect, you have raised two issues about the rate restructuring and about petrol and diesel being brought under the GST. So rate structuring is a difficult exercise, politically sensitive and pull the pressure. You will recall when in 2017, this GST was introduced for the 1 year, 1.5 year, GST council was always worried and agitating over the issue, which rate, which item to be brought in and the rate should be brought down or brought in. So similarly, when the rate restructuring exercise will be on and this ultimately has to be taken up, this will be highly sensitive, politically also difficult and pull and pressure issue because then everybody will like that my item should be brought down from 18 to 12%, why my item should go from 12 to 15%. So it's a highly sensitive. On petrol and diesel, the finance minister made a very, bold statement today that the enabling provision is already there in the statute. It is only the GST council which has to approve the day that the petrol and diesel will be in the GST. But the biggest challenge is that in today's date, in case GST, petrol and diesel is to be brought under GST, the GST rate has to be more than 100%, which is very difficult for a government to announce that the GST is more than 100% on petrol and diesel. That's why the challenge, I believe, still continues on petrol and diesel.
Right. Do stay with us, all of you gentlemen. We've also got a reaction from Kerala's finance minister. Do remember that the first half of today's meeting essentially was about what the states want the finance minister, from the finance minister rather, in the union budget. Mr. Jain, you know, one of the expectations was that perhaps the inverted duty structure is something that will be taken up. Now, we've not heard anything about it. How do you see that?
Yes, I see what they see. Whatever was being discussed in the last 1 week about this council, I think that none of that was the part of the agenda.
Well, I can see everybody smiling about that, you know, that it wasn't. But anyways, please carry on.
And then the inverted duty is a challenge because the footwear industry, the fertilizer, she said, yes, these are the issues. But she said nothing could be taken up today. Because what I understand now, today's meeting was mainly on legal issues and ease of doing business for the taxpayers, etc. But probably that was the only agenda which was taken up today. And that's why I see that the rate she had touched minimum, only few concessions have been announced, where I believe there was already a agreement and already consensus that there is no issue about arising it now. But now coming to the 2 points which have raised, intra-railway services have been exempted because you cannot provide service to yourself. I believe no similar demand will be there from the power sector, public sector companies, etc. Which they have different branches, etc. So there is a big challenge coming in there also. So that challenge will again come back on that part also. So that's another issue which will come up to haunt this GST council. Once intra-railway services have been exempted, why in the other sector, otherwise intra-departmental, intra-branch services should be taxed? That may be a challenge which may be coming up on that part.
And perhaps also today, Mr. Jain, was a precursor for what we could expect. So just weigh in on what your expectation from the next council meeting is going to be now.
I see that expectation of the next council meeting mainly will be rate restructuring. See, the buoyancy in tax collections the last 1 year is quite substantial. And this was the promise made in the 2017, going down the line. In case the rate of collection goes improved, then the rate will be revisited. And I believe there is a consensus among the at least industry and the consumer itself that this rate structure is complex. Now we have the 5 tax rate structure which is complex. If not more, at least one rate structure can be brought down. 12 and 18, there can be a compromise. It can be brought down 15%. Some of the item can go up from 12 to 15, and some item can be brought out from 18 to 15. And the second part, which I think the finance minister didn't touch, and I believe none of the people in the press asked the question about the cess, which we call sin tax, which was there. And now there is, I think, a lot of money has been collected. The loan which have been taken, we have been repaid. And so still there will be 75,000 crore rupees of surplus. How that is going to be in the future, whether the cess will get abolished or the cess will continue, and if the cess will continue, in what form and how it is going to be divided among the state. I think that will be the agenda in the next meeting, should be there on that part of the agenda on that. And definitely the other point which you touched upon was inverted rate structure. That will also be a subject matter. And then taxation on this gaming, horse trading, etc. All, I think these items which were supposed to be taken up in today's meeting will be in the next meeting, I believe.
As I is now trained on August, that's when we're expecting that next meeting to take place. All three of you gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on this special broadcast.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, with that, that's a wrap on our special broadcast. Thank you very much for joining in, but stay tuned to NDTV Profit for more.